Hey everyone, this is Blackhawk SE and welcome to part 2 of my UAC tutorial. I'll put a link to part 1 in the description in case you missed it. In this video we'll start off by comparing the UAC to its alternatives, and we'll begin on the clan side since there are more alternatives to the Ultra ACs for clans. We'll first talk about the clan regular ACs because the comparison is fairly straightforward. Honestly, I really can't think of any reason to take these over the Ultra versions. Most of them except for the clan AC5 have slightly lower heat values, but that does not compensate for their higher slot requirement and the DPS downgrade. Furthermore, there are no cooldown modules for any of the clan regular ACs, which hurts their DPS even more. I know there are people who take regular ACs to avoid jams, but hopefully you've seen in my earlier videos that the double tap results in a net benefit over the long term. In short, avoid the clan regular ACs, since their disadvantages are far more numerous than their advantages over the Ultra versions. Moving over to the LBX autocannons, we'll talk about the 2s and 5s separately from the 10s and 20s. The LBX 2 and 5 have higher optimal ranges and higher velocities than their Ultra counterparts. They have crit damage bonuses, while the 2s have a lower heat value as well. At first, the range and velocity increases might sound nice until you realize that these are kind of pointless because of the spread on the LBX autocannons. I did a little experiment to determine what are the effective ranges of those two LBX ACs. In the test, I start shooting at the Cataphract in the testing grounds from 700 meters out and move 50 meters closer each time until most of the bullets start hitting CT. If you're interested in why I tested this way, check the video description since it's kind of long. In this video, take a look at the paper doll on the upper right corner to see where the pellets land. So using my method, the LBX 2's effective range turns out to be about 400 meters and the LBX 5's is about 250 meters. This is far lower than the optimal values listed for these weapons, so the range number on these two ACs end up being not very important. Since we're shooting at closer targets, the velocity increase isn't a real advantage either. The critical damage bonus is nice, but you have to realize that it doesn't start to take effect until the mech's armor has been stripped, which is typically 2/3 of the component's overall health. Even then, the bonuses are not overwhelmingly good. In summary, the LBX 2s and 5s have certain pros, but they're outweighed by the disadvantages, including range, lower DPS, and slot requirements. So in general, just don't use them. The LBX 10s and 20s, on the other hand, are legitimate options in this game. As mentioned earlier, the LBX 5's optimal range is really around 250 meters, so you can expect the effective range of the 10s and 20s to be lower. At those ranges, you're looking at brawl builds, and the 10s and 20s happen to work reasonably well with other clan brawl weapons, especially the SRMs. Both of these weapons types are relatively heat efficient and requires minimal phase time, so you can fire off a salvo and twist to spread damage. The cooldown of the 10 syncs with the SRM4s, and the 20 syncs with the SRM6. Here we demo the playstyle of the Marauder 2C Scorch, as we attempt to protect the damaged right torso. The Ultra 10 and 20s are far worse than a Brawl because, although they are capable of doing more damage over time, you're constantly facing the enemy, making it easy for them to focus your CT or other damage components. The reliability of non-Ultra ACs is another factor, because usually you'll only survive the Brawl if you can kill the enemy first. If you're unlucky, then you're stuck with much of your firepower disabled, having already potentially taken a lot of CT damage due to all the staring. The last factor that makes the LBXs better in a Brawl is their slightly better heat efficiency. So the LBX 10s and 20s can work well, but make sure you use them in a Brawl-focused build. When we look at IS, we don't have as many choices. The point that I made earlier about the LBX 10 being a Brawl weapon applies to the IS AC10 and LBX 10 comparison as well. The AC10 is more of a mid-range DPS or alpha weapon, whereas the LBX is a Brawl weapon. A popular build that uses the LBX 10 is the Shadowhawk 2D2 that combines the LBX 10 and SRM4s into a pretty effective brawler. For the IS UAC 5 versus the regular 5 comparison, in most cases you should prefer the Ultras. But I'll note two cases where the regular 5s are equivalent or better. First is on mediums such as the Scrid Iron. I stated in part 1 of this guide that it's best to take 2 UACs when possible. Here, if we use UACs, tonnage becomes an issue. If we were to use UACs on this build, I'd either have to take off the lasers like this, or if I choose to use the lasers, I'd have to go to a very low engine because I can't use ferrofibrous armor. On this mech and other ballistic mediums like this, combining lasers and regular ACs give you burst DPS that's lower but similar to the Ultras. So in these cases the regular 5s make sense. Another case is when we can take more AC5s than Ultra 5s, like on the Cyclops CP11A. Unlike the clan version, the IS AC5 is lighter and uses less slots than the Ultra. By using standard 5s on this build, we can take 3 rather than 2 UAC 5s, and gain reliable DPS and a slightly better mid-range alpha as a result. The final topic in this video is to address a concern that I've heard occasionally, which is that the UACs seem to waste a lot of ammo when you miss. I think this problem is a combination of psychology and gameplay. On the psychological side, when you see clan ultras fire off a lot of bullets and you happen to miss, your immediate reaction might be to think that you've missed 3 or 4 shots. But in fact, you've really just missed a single salvo. If you miss a salvo with the ultras, you would have likely missed the same shot with the regular ACs as well, so it's more of a perceived disadvantage.
Target destroyed.
The actual issue though is when you misjudge your lead and double tap, and this is where the gameplay side of the solution comes in. First, you should prioritize targets that are easier to hit, for example, slow, large, and closer targets. Sometimes it pays off to switch targets to a better one if you're having a hard time hitting something fast-moving. Next, if the only target in sight is something that's hard to hit with UACs, take one shot at a time. Look at where the salvo lands, and once you get the lead right, start double tapping. This is what I'm doing while shooting at the huntsman here. Although it's not too far away, it's running left while my bullets are going from left to right, which makes it more difficult to lead properly. Okay guys, thanks for watching this video, and if you like this series, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. I know there are some more topics that I could have covered, but these are probably the biggest issues that I see people face. So if you have more questions, leave a comment. I'm usually pretty good about responding. See you next time, mech warriors.